My name is Joanne Avery, and I'm the superintendent of Anderson School District 4. It's been almost a year since the horrific tragedy at Townville Elementary School that took the life of one of our students, Jacob Hall. In thinking about that day, we've really reflected on things that we can learn from that tragedy, but it's also been an opportunity to think about the things that went as well as they could have gone. So I certainly want to recognize Denise Fredericks and her staff for their quick response and their bravery, because I really believe in my heart it could have been a lot worse had they not been trained and maintained their composure and really focused on the safety of our students. At the same time, we lost precious Jacob Hall, and he was an amazing young student. Was on his way out to the playground to, as all students do, to run and jump and be a child, and tragically he lost his life. We continue to grieve. We miss him. He was a bright and shining star, always focused on making good choices, and was such a role model for being so faithful and modeling the kinds of behaviors that are so important in our world. As we look at that day and we move forward, we continue to have some challenges. We continue to provide mental health counseling for our students and staff. We also have put in place some extra floating subs just to be there as additional support for our teachers. Should something trigger a moment where they need to have a break from instruction, if they hear a pop or something loud outside, they may need to have a break from instruction. And so we've got some long-term subs that are there to provide that support. In addition, in the weeks following the tragedy, we actually hired an SRO, and that position is currently funded through a national SERVE grant and will continue to be funded next year. But that's just added another layer, an elevated layer of protection for that school. So as we continue to look forward and what we can do to help support, I think from the superintendent's perspective and our school board's perspective, is we're going to do whatever we need to do to provide that support for our Townville community and for our students and staff for as long as it's needed. In the weeks following the shooting, we really, while we've always been very concerned about ensuring that our students and staff are safe and secure, when you are a victim of a school shooting, it does give a different perspective. You have a different lens in terms of how you see safety and security. And so one of the things that I did was actual walkthrough of all of our campuses with Anderson County Sheriff's Office and members of the SWAT team to better understand where our vulnerable areas are, and to have these folks who understand how a criminal mind thinks, to be able to identify those things that we could look at doing differently. And so we've done several things since September in terms of just making our schools safer. A couple examples would be, we wanted a common language in terms of if law enforcement had to respond at LaFrance, Townville, or high school, that they know when they get to the school that the labeling of doors and hallways would be the same. And so we've standardized that process. We've even created a law enforcement box that's actually hooked into our security system that has these maps, has a two-way radio, and other things that if they did need to respond, they would be able to have the tools that they need to better understand the situation. One of the things that was a surprise to us with the Townville shooting was that, we assumed that the Knox box that's located on the outside of our schools that has a master key would be accessible to law enforcement. And what we learned is it's not. It's only accessible to our fire safety officials. So we've gone to all the schools and installed 2 Knox boxes so that law enforcement can have easy access to all of our schools as well as fire safety. Our parents will see and our students will see that we have increased the number of SROs in our schools. This year we've included in our budget 2 additional SRO positions. And then next year we'll pick up the grant-funded position at Townville Elementary School, as well as pick up the final 6 positions. And so by the end of next school year, we will have 6 SROs, which full-time, for one for every school in our district. You know, clearly our first responders were our heroes that day. They were there, they provided the support that was needed, but then in the months to follow, they were still there. And I think, you know, one of the things that I talk about when I'm asked to share what we learned from this tragedy is how important it is to have those relationships with your first responders prior to when you need them. Because I believe in the Townville situation, that was very significant to how quickly help actually arrived on the scene. You know, in reflecting on the tragedy at Townville and doing some research just to better understand how other districts and schools handled the situation, it was very sobering to me to see that we were the 196th school shooting since Sandy Hook in December of 2012. And that's a sad statistic. And, you know, when I think about also, you know, when I was in HR and I was hiring school nurses, I never dreamed that I would be needing to hire nurses that would have to provide level 1 trauma care, you know, the kind of care that you would see on a battlefield. But sadly, that was our experience. And so now as we look forward, we want to be prepared. And so we've actually ensure that all of our schools have trauma kits, multiple trauma kits. They're strategically placed, but even more so, we've required every staff member to understand what's in that trauma kit and how to use it. And it's not to be in place of the medical professionals that need to provide that care, but it's really to cut the time, to be able to provide us with the skills in those seconds or those few minutes that are between when the incident happens and when medical care can get on the scene.